We know that it's a wide-ranging probe into Hunter Biden's business dealings. On the one hand, it's looking at whether he violated any tax laws. And on the other hand, it's also looking at whether he violated any sort of laws that govern lobbying of foreign governments with his business relationships in places like Ukraine, China, and Kazakhstan.
Remind viewers what Burisma is and what role that's playing in this investigation.
So Burisma is a company, it's a natural gas company in Ukraine that had some ties to Ukrainian corruption. And Hunter Biden got a seat on the board in 2014 that was just as his father, who was vice president at the time, was the Obama administration's point man on all things corruption and was kind of the sort of ambassador figure to Ukraine. And so many saw this appointment as a conflict of interest and saw it as a way for Hunter Biden to influence the White House and for the White House to influence Hunter Biden and vice versa. And opponents of Biden, particularly Trump and Trump associates, have said that this is a reason for there to be an investigation into all of the Bidens. And in fact, you probably first heard about Burisma in 2019 when Trump used this board position as a talking point in a phone call with the Ukrainian president Vladimir Zelensky, who he pressured to basically announce an investigation into the Bidens stemming from Hunter Biden's work with Burisma, and that phone call famously resulted in President Trump's first impeachment. So Burisma has been in the news for a number of years for these reasons, and it remains in the news as part of this investigation into Hunter Biden's tax dealings.
Another name from this investigation, Rosemont Seneca. What's that?
So that is a company through which Hunter Biden funneled some of the money that he received from Burisma. When he worked for Burisma, he was making as much as $50,000 a month. And so what federal prosecutors are looking at right now is whether he funneled some of that money through other companies, including Rosemont Seneca, to avoid some tax liability on the money that he was receiving from Burisma.
Foreign Agents Registration Act. How does that play into this?
So that is a federal law that requires anybody who is lobbying on behalf of foreign governments within the United States to register with the Justice Department. This is a law that has been used a number of times in recent years, but these cases are always very challenging. And in this case, it's going to be even more challenging because what prosecutors are finding is that Hunter Biden often used third parties like law firms or consulting firms to do the work for him rather than get his hands involved directly in making things happen in Washington.
Through your reporting, how much is the investigation looking into whether President Biden or then Vice President Biden knew about these business dealings and any role that he might have had?
So Vice President Biden and now President Biden, he's maintained throughout this that he had no conversations with his son about his foreign business dealings. And the investigation up until this point, from what we know, has not led to the White House. It has not led to President Biden. There may be other people under investigation that we don't know about, but at this point, their prosecutors have not found that link.
Other countries that Hunter Biden had business dealings in, what do we know about those?
So our reporting showed that he had some business dealings in Ukraine and China and also Kazakhstan and other places in Europe where he was working with some tycoons in these countries who were using the Biden name to sort of leverage their connections in the United States. And so that would be one area that prosecutors would be looking at as a possible violation of the Foreign Agents Registration Act that we talked about. So for a while, prosecutors in the Justice Department have been debating whether Hunter Biden's well-documented history of substance abuse and alcohol abuse could present a successful defense to a tax case because, it speaks to sort of the state of mind at the time that he was doing, filing these taxes or not filing these taxes or doing these business dealings. And he could potentially argue that he didn't know what was going on.
Phone lines are open for you to call in on this topic. The Hunter Biden investigation. Sadie Gurman of the Wall Street Journal, Justice Department reporter there, is our guest. As folks are calling in, what's been the extent of your reporting on the now infamous Hunter Biden laptop?
Yeah, so that laptop obviously has been, in the news quite a bit. What we've been able to determine is that apparently Hunter Biden did drop that off at a computer repair shop in Delaware, and law enforcement took custody of it. But what we can't discern at this point is actually to what extent it would it would factor into this investigation.
James Lawrence, Mass, line for Democrats. Good morning.
Good morning. I was just wondering if you could give us any more information as far as Tony Bobulinski and John Kerry's nephew and Devin Archer, or any of these things that everybody seems to have learned about 2 years ago that this woman doesn't seem to know anything about. I was wondering if she might communicate with Kimberly Strassel. It works, I believe, at the Wall Street Journal. It is doing a lot more of the information. What about President Biden's brother? What about, all these things that are going on that this woman doesn't seem to know absolutely?
Well, tell you what, James, let's give Sadie Gurman a chance to respond on any of those.
Sure. Tony Bobulinski was one of Hunter Biden's business partners, and our reporting on the news side of the Wall Street Journal, he had said that President Biden, was aware of this, aware of Hunter Biden's business dealings, and had spoken to him about that. That is something that the president has vehemently denied. As to your other questions, that's not something that we've been focusing on in our reporting because we are looking at, the extent of the investigation into Hunter Biden himself. That's an investigation we know about because Hunter Biden disclosed it himself in December of 2020.
Mike, Bessemer City, North Carolina, Republican line. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, it would be 24 hours, 7 days a week from everything from CNN, MSNBC to PBS if it was the Trump family doing this. And when we take back the House in this year, hopefully McCarthy will open an investigation. I want to call all of them 51 so-called experts that said this was Russian disinformation. It is so pathetic that the social media like Facebook, Twitter, and all them banded that while Joe was hiding in his basement, covering up everything, all the way from the illegal gun permit.
Mike, do you have a question?
Just imagine if it, sir?
Do you have a question?
Yes. How much forceful this is going to be brought out in the mainstream media, from the Wall Street Journal all the way to CNN? Not little 5-minute clips, but just like they're doing the 7-hour missing phone calls in Trump. That's all you hear. That's all.
All right, that's Mike in North Carolina. Sadie Gurman, what do you want to pick up on?
Sure. Well, what I can say about that is that when there's news, the Wall Street Journal will cover it.
Involving Hunter Biden, and specifically that laptop issue. It was Congressman Matt Gaetz who eventually got the committee to accept the contents of that laptop into the congressional record. But this is Matt Gaetz yesterday asking the assistant director of the FBI cyber division about the location right now of the Hunter Biden laptop.
I mean, I would think that if the president's son, who does international business deals, referencing the now president with the Chinese, with Ukrainians, I mean, have you assessed whether or not the Hunter Biden laptop gives Russia the ability to harm our country?
Sir, again, we can do this back and forth for the next couple of minutes. I don't have any information about the Hunter Biden laptop or the
But should you? I mean, you're the assistant director of FBI Cyber.
By the block and line chart, no, sir, I should not.
Who should we put in that chair to ask questions about this laptop that FBI has had for 3 years?
Sir, I'm not in a position to make a recommendation who should say.
So you don't have it, you don't know who has it, you don't know where it is, you're the assistant director. You know, earlier you talked about whether or not you were the Grant Hill or the Christian Laettner. It sounds like you're the Chris Webber trying to call a timeout when you don't have one.
At the end of the day, prosecutors in Delaware are looking at whether Hunter Biden, may have used other companies, funneled money through other companies that he was getting from Burisma in order to sort of mask some of his tax liability on money that he was getting from that company. Is whether Hunter Biden should have registered as a foreign agent in some of these business relationships with other countries. But again, what we're finding is that he frequently used like outside firms to sort of do the lobbying work for him, as opposed to getting involved directly himself, again, sort of, concealing the liability there.